Starting out, do we have any public comments on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none. And we have, who on the Meet Me, Google Meet Me? No one? Okay. So then we have a full quorum here. Are there any conflict of interest declarations by the committee members? I think there's only one voting item, so we'll move into that. An important decision. Think back to March 4th of 2020. So I had a chance to review the minutes, and I hope you did also. I didn't see anything that was out of order. So would we like to approve the minutes from March 4th, 2020? Would anyone like to motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, would anyone like to second? We do have new members here, but you can...
I wasn't here, so I don't know,
Okay.
I should move the motion.
I wasn't here either, so.
So I was here, and if I can, I will second it. So they're approved. Thank you. That was a good trip down memory lane there. So we have information today, so it looks like a nice agenda we have ahead of us. But we'd like to first do an introduction of someone we know, Gary Weidenheimer, our new TAC member. Welcome.
Thank you.
Deepak, did you have anything further?
So I'm very pleased to announce that, you already announced, Gary has joined us as Ms. McQuinn's representative. And Gary has, everything he has done at the school district, technology, and, he shaped the ET team and worked with me. Even when I started, he took me around everywhere. Even at the conferences, he took me around and introduced so many people. So I appreciate, Gary, what you have done for the district. And again, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I think the next agenda is mine too, but before I move on there, I just want to also say congratulations to Mr. Radcliffe.
Yes, sir.
He's the new COO of the Clark County, clerk of Palm Beach County. So congratulations here.
Thank you very much.
So the next item I have is, I just put this up here, as you can see that since March 2020, we never had any meetings, and we were supposed to have a meeting in like June, and Gary was supposed to attend that one. And unfortunately, we did not have agenda. Our members, basically TAC members, wanted a virtual meeting, and something happened, we had to cancel it. And since then, basically, somehow we were not able to have a regular meeting, and so I'm pretty happy that we are now able to have in person. We had a lot of work done in IT. Like everybody else, your all teams have worked a lot in IT to keep the lights on and making sure that employees are working from home, and so we did all that. But a few areas I just want to mention. I think Natasha, I know I have to talk about Natasha. Everybody knew Chris Prasad. He was the director of technical operations here, and he moved on to be CIO of City of Rivera Beach in November. So Natasha has taken over that position temporarily, but now recently she was just appointed now, as director of technical operations, after she did such a fantastic job with rolling out the devices and keeping the technical operations area good. So last year, Chris started, Chris, Mike, and I were regularly talking about, how to get, Mike got us the money, and we were able to roll out almost 100,000 devices for the students. And you can tell about, we are competing with a lot of districts ordering devices. So, they were back ordered and still are back ordered. But we were able to have 100,000 devices from August till November. We rolled out almost 82,000 Chromebooks. Prior to that, during March, we rolled out almost 66,000 Chromebooks, which we owned. Finished the year in May. I just want to mention that how much work the entire IT department, ET, performance accountability, all the departments really worked very hard to do the surveys, roll out the equipment, go to the community, Dr. Miller and his team went to the community, kind of like, hey, do you have internet? You don't. And we kind of provided internet to the families basically who needed it. We worked with county basically on the the Wi-Fi extenders. We are still working on that. So there's a lot of work being done by every department, and I think Chris Prasad was instrumental in really helping us out initially with the project of rolling out the 66,000 machines and ordering the machines. And then Natasha did the follow-up work after that, and till February we were doing some of our CT machines, so that rollout was very successful, and now we are completely 1-to-1 district. So we were 2-to-1 before that. Now we are 1-to-1 school district now. And again, I don't want to forget David, and I don't want to forget the contributions of David and Don on the Google side, and David on the bandwidth. We had issues with the bandwidth. We had issues with the portal, with so many people joining from outside. And so we just overcame everything in flying colors, I would say. And now I think I'm so proud of all these accomplishments, and Mike is too. I believe Natasha and David will talk a little bit more, so I just want to stop there. I want you to encourage and read about the whole, this edition of Time we just rolled out in April. That has all the work we have done for the school district throughout 2020, and many of the staff accomplishments and projects we're working on. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, and I did get a chance to read through it, and it was a tremendous amount of work, so you're to be congratulated with your staff. So let's move to the Peoplesoft update by Don Pumphrey.
Good morning. There's a few new faces here, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Dawn Pumphrey. I'm the Director of IT Enterprise Applications. I have with me here today Sarah Anderson, General Manager in IT Applications, and we'll be presenting a review of a year-long project we recently completed, which was our Peoplesoft database platform conversion. Sarah was instrumental in the success of this project. She kept everyone on task, and it was a very successful outcome. So I'm going to be turning the presentation. I'm going to give a little bit of an overview. You can go to the next slide. Oh, who's got it? And then I'm going to be turning it over to Sarah to go into more of the details and whatnot. So we use Peoplesoft, which is an ERP. It's owned by Oracle. It's an enterprise resource planning application. And it's used by corporations to support human resource, finance, and e-learning functions within an organization. The district implemented Peoplesoft back in 2006, and since that time, we continuously have utilized more functionality and grown that. It's a full-blown, very complex application. My team supports the system administration, the database, the backend, the technical, the programming part of the Peoplesoft application. Excuse me. Just a few metrics. The backend database now is Oracle. Our project was converting from the DB2 database platform to Oracle. And you can see from the production database sizes how large the data storage is. We have HR is the terabytes, 1.3 terabytes. And we have finance and e-learning, which are significantly large as well. We have 30 environments that we maintain, and we use them for production, testing, training, QA, and those kinds of things. And you can see that there we have the servers. We have 12 AIX servers, the Linux servers, and the Windows servers. So this just shows you the size of this application. And also important to note is the data integrations. We integrate to our vendors, our banks, and whatnot, but we also have the internal interfaces to our internal applications such as SIS and EDW. And there's 100+ of those. So it's a large application, and it was a significant undertaking. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to go into more of the detail.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to TAC. It's good to see you in person. What I'd like to talk about now is an accomplishment that was achieved by the entire ERP team, both technical and the functional side, which is led by the ERP director, Michael Carr. As you guys know, the Peoplesoft environment was running on DB2, as Dawn just said, and Oracle being the vendor that owns Peoplesoft, was requiring organizations to switch over to either MS SQL or to Oracle, because as of January next year, they're no longer going to support DB2. So we didn't have a choice. We wanted to get ahead of the curve and do it as quickly as we could. We also had a new IBM P9 server, which was nice that we're able to utilize. And I want to thank Dave Wilhelm's team, because they were instrumental in being our partner every step along the way with getting us onto the new server as well. We decided to do two other things thank you, Mark. In conjunction with the database conversion. We needed to get current on the Peoplesoft tools. We did an upgrade. And we also, for those of you, I think Radcliffe, you're familiar with Peoplesoft very much so. Our interaction hub was actually a portal environment, but it wasn't being used for anything other really than the interaction hub. So we decided it made more sense to move the interaction hub to the HR environment and to decommission the portal. And we also, as part of this project, established the Oracle Data Guard for business continuity and DR purposes at Northwest Regional Data Center. So basically over the course of the past year plus, this project was achieved by our teams. And you can see here in the timeline, beginning in Q1 of 2020, how the project work began. And then you can see as you go down through this slide, the dev environment, which was the programming and retrofitting, and SIT, systems integration testing done by Michael Carr's side of the house, UAT, some parallel testing, production, and then lessons learned and closing. We actually went live during spring break, which is what we typically try to do with large-scale projects like this, because it reduces the amount of downtime for our end users. So we always strive to do that, just to reduce downtime. So just to note here, another thing that we were challenged with while doing this project was a couple of other pretty large projects. There was an EPM implementation, as I think most of you know, which was integrated with Peoplesoft, about 10 integrations, and that was for budget planning. Absence management, which was rolled out in several different pilot phases, and a business continuity. In the past, we've had DR for Peoplesoft up at Northwest Regional, but we were tasked with doing a full business continuity, adding some servers, adding some CPU, adding e-learning, which we didn't have there before. And we're able to establish all that in the DB2 environment as of last fall. And then when we went live with Oracle, with the Oracle database as the underlying, database infrastructure, beginning when we went live towards the end of March, right after spring break. So some of the experiences and lessons learned here, we did this all throughout the project was implemented while working remotely due to the COVID restrictions. And actually that kind of works in our favor because people work more hours. They weren't driving in, so they get up and they're probably in their jammies. I'm not going to say, I don't know. But they would just get up and start working. They weren't taking lunch breaks. They weren't leaving and going off site for lunch. And then they just kept working in the evening. So there was a lot of work that went into that. We didn't use Google Meet before we started working remotely, but we started leveraging it for our communication tool. That worked great. Another thing that worked really well with this is that we were lucky enough to get from Natasha, the PMO director, an independent project manager. And that freed up our other leadership in the ERP organizations to do the leadership in smaller subset committees, but the overall project management and the initiation, the kickoff, and the weekly meetings was done by Manny Osorio, who's one of our project managers here at the school district, and that worked really well. A couple other things to note that I'm not going to say they're negative or positive, but there were competing projects, and there was a strain on resources because of those. But I think, as we all know, there's really no choice. There are things that needed to be done at the same time. So we just made it work. And then lack of a code freeze, which every time that we've had a large-scale project here, mainly the application upgrades, we have always said we're going to try to do a code freeze on a certain date, but just things come up. There are emergencies. They're just projects, smaller projects that have to be implemented. So it was a little bit of a strain on the project schedule during the final phase, but we didn't change the project schedule. We just made it work, frankly. So what's next for Peoplesoft? What we're doing in the next year, Michael Carr's working hard with the business directors and upper leadership. Any district strategic planning functionality that's required to, that you need Peoplesoft functionality for business and departmental objectives. Time Clock Plus implementation, which school police need that for scheduling and time and pay management, which obviously will be integrated to Peoplesoft because Peoplesoft's the master record for that type of information. And then what's called a Peoplesoft image catch-up. So this is the new terminology that Oracle uses. In the past, you always heard, we're going to do an application upgrade. Well, an image catch-up is just a different way of doing that same thing. And that's what we're going to be attempting to do. We did get caught up with the e-learning environment about a year and a half ago, but we need to do the same for finance and for HR, and then we'll also do a tools upgrade in conjunction with that. Any questions? Okay.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No questions, I just wanted to say great job. It's pretty remarkable during a pandemic, so great job to the
Thank you.
team there.
Thank you.
Okay, next up would be David, talking about the referendum IT infrastructure update.
Yes, referendum IT infrastructure update. So I try to bring this back every year, or at least a couple times a year, and then obviously it's been over a year since what we said March was the last time we met. We've done a lot. I know Sarah and Dawn and Deepak have all touched on it. We probably accomplished more over this last year than any previous years, at least the 5 years I've been a director here, based on we were able to get focused on what we needed to do. People were out of the schools. You know, we're able to go in, do wireless access points, do routers, switches, cabling, anything we needed to, because nobody was in the schools. So, you know, we didn't have the overtime, because most of this stuff has to happen on nights and weekends. So we actually accomplished a lot this year. School phone system and system PBX, you might see it on there. This is the way it shows up on the budget sheets. We're not really 1.4 million over. We worked with Leanne Evans on this and took it to the ISOC committee to redo those numbers. It's just not reflected there. What we did was we bought back-end infrastructure for the school phone system, but we actually paid for it out of school phone system, and it should have been out of back-end infrastructure. It's an accounting change that we did. We're not overspent. It just kind of looks like it. So for the 5 years, we're at 37.4%. And the other big one that sticks out to me is the school network routers and switches. Such a big amount, the largest amount that's going to be given to us over the 10 years, and it's the least amount we spent. That's because the next E-rate cycle that's coming up, it's for the next 5 years. So we're about to start that and do a full refresh, and that will be a big expense for us. So just a little background on those numbers. So back-end infrastructure replacement, like I said, we got a lot done this year. You know, we did help out with the ERP stuff. Sarah kind of alluded to that. IBM hardware upgrade for Peoplesoft, EDW, Tririga. We did that in 2020. We did firewall upgrades at all 3 of our locations. We have our primary site here, business continuity at South I, and then Northwest Regional as our DR. We did a hardware refresh at South I for all of our critical applications, the IBM, like I said, and then we also introduced hyper-converged infrastructure in this last year for our management clusters for all of our VM environments, both here and at South ITV. So it gives us, a standalone management for managing all of our VM environment, which is very large in our environment. Current projects, we're trying to get rid of the tape libraries right now for backups. That's both here and at Northwest Regional. We're going to object storage. It's just, I think it's a more efficient way to do it. We're going to have it here and at Northwest. Anything that's here, we're going to sync it up to Northwest. We'll always have a backup recovery of everything that we have. We can do cloning, we can do snapshots, we can do things that, that we have been doing on our SAM, but now we can do it with our backups as well. So pretty excited about that. We're actually in that. And then for Fulton, Holland, we're actually doing a CPU compute upgrade as we speak right now. We kind of Lego brick things in, right? So it's not an all-at-once thing. It's all right, we can replace these, and then we'll take these ones off the back, and we'll add to the cluster, because they're clusters. So we can make it, expand the cluster with newer equipment and take off the old stuff and retire it. All of this is on a 5-year cycle. School network routers, switches, and cabling. We are done with all of the fiber upgrades in the schools, finally. It's been over a year. It's been a couple years. So what that means is we are going to be able to have cabling to support up to 100 gigs from our core routers out to the AT&T ASE and also back to any IDF within the school. We're planning for the future here, right? We're nowhere near these speeds right now, not even close. I mean, we got 1 gig switches in the buildings. I want to stay ahead of this stuff because we know it's coming and it takes a long time to implement this stuff. And the last thing I want is the infrastructure team to be, playing catch up. So, we're planning ahead, we're planning for the future. The cabling was the first step of that, and that is done. Current project right now, we're doing the core switch replacement. This is 200 sites, in total. We're down to the 17 last elementary schools right now. So we're gonna have that done by the end of summer. We've got a lot of good accomplishments this last year and this year as well. Mdf Idf Cabinet Replacements, we had a E-rate bid that went through in the spring. It's been board approved already. And we're going to be changing out all of the cabinets in the schools because when we're going out and replacing all the switches have changed sizes and they won't fit in the cabinets. Other thing with the cabinet replacements, we want to be able to close them, lock them, reduce the noise in classrooms if they're in the classrooms, and they're also vented. So, the heat will go out and we won't have to worry about that it being pumped into the classrooms. Some of the IDFs in some of the older schools, some of them are actually in the middle of the classrooms and they're loud. So, we're trying to avoid that and trying to better that in the schools. The other current project that we just kind of started was Redesigns supporting greater redundancy at the schools. So this has been happening so much in the last even couple weeks. Point Siena High School was a school that we had that went down last week due to a fiber cut. And the principal says they're right out there on the, it's got to be this neighborhood right next door. They're out there boring. I'm sure somebody bored through the cable, and the school's down. And she's calling me. I got regional SUMs calling me, asking me, well, how long is it going to be? Well, it's really up to AT&T to fix that. Okay, so we have a single point of failure at schools. How can we, we try to take care of it at the district level for fiber cuts and redundancy. How can we do it at a school level? I get, they're worried about it. They're worried about it from their standpoint. If all my kids are coming back into school, how am I going to be able to teach? We've gone pretty much one-to-one. We're doing lesson plans with this one-to-one. Obviously, they have a backup plan. But if I tell them something, if I tell them it's going to take 1 to 2 days and it could take up to a week, people panic. I mean, it's a big impact when we lose a line at a school. So working with AT&T, we're going to do a pilot. We're going to do 3 high schools and there are 3 technical schools. So what we're going to do is increase their capacity. And by increasing their capacity, it's within our contract that we're able to keep paying the E-rate price. But along with that increase, it's going to be a second line into the school. So run it off the back street or run it off the side street. I don't care how you do it. If somebody bores in the front, run it off the second one. And then we'll build the school out to be able to support that. We'll see how it goes. AT&T has waived all costs except for the cost of the monthly line. So they're going to do all the construction for us. So we're going to try it out in 3 different schools. We'll see how that goes. Future products, IDF switch replacements, yeah, that'll be in the next E-rate cycle, next 5-year E-rate cycle. And we are currently in planning for the next 5-year E-rate cycle. So, we gotta prepare the bid. It's got to be ready by December. We're shooting for December board for that to go through, and hopefully we have the bid available for the next 5 years. Oh, left. I'm hitting the wrong thing. School server replacement. I don't have much on this, just based on, over a 10-year referendum cycle. We had said that we're going to replace school servers at least twice because we're on a 5-year cycle for each. So, in the last 5 years, all the schools, 200, it's basically 200 sites with all the ancillary sites and everything else. They've been replaced. So we're planning for the next. We're just going to go through it again. This has worked really well for us. You know, not much has changed as far as design and architecture. This is what we do at the schools. It's basically for troubleshooting at the schools. A lot of it's for backup. A lot of it's for local deployments. So we're not pushing everything across the WAN. So it's, you know, if we're going to push something at a school, it pushes locally. I also want to say on this, it's kind of been it's a good thing that we have these school servers. With school police and all the security camera projects that are going on, we've been able to leverage the storage that we have on these servers to be able to hold their videos locally first, to be able to push off second. So, you know, part of our planning, and I think this started in the middle school years, was to actually expand the storage as much as we can. It saves them from purchasing a whole nother device that has to plug into our closet, that has to, you know, draw more power, has to, you know, one more thing in that closet, putting out heat, doing those things. We're already running the server there, so we were able to work with school police and be able to store their storage, you know, their camera storage for a local storage. Just a side note. I want to go back to back-end infrastructure. One thing that caught us during the COVID years, or the COVID year. VPN, and that is a piece of back-end infrastructure. VPN was not pretty for us, and we found that out the hard way. VPN was always available for just IT folks, and for certain folks, you know, that needed to get in, finance, some accounting, budget folks. But deploying that wide scale to the district, that was not the right product for that. So we are completing out, you know, our current contract with them. We're looking at zero trust networking. We're looking at a different way. School police has their own different type of VPN. We're looking at that. You know, that's something that we can do with the back-end infrastructure dollars, and it is absolutely on our radar because there was a lot of people that struggled with that. So I just wanted to mention that. That just popped in my head too. So. School phone system and PBX. Oh, this project is going very well. I'm very happy with this. You know, replacing a 20-year-old system, we're seeing less and less P1s. We call them P1s here in the district. You know, the entire school's down. There's no 7-digit dialing. You know, we get those. We were getting those probably once, twice, 3 times a week. I mean, every morning we'd go through the thing, and it's like, Dave, you have 3 P1s on phones, and I'm like, I know. So we're going through this. It's getting less and less. The project milestones for this, you know, we started with the installations in 2019. You know, we've done a couple pilot schools. E-faxing upgrades have been completed. Anybody on a desktop within the district can go to our district portal and fax from a tile. All high school and middle schools have been completed. And we did the transportation call center over spring break. And elementary schools were 65 of 110, so we're almost done. We're on a pace of 2 per week. So every Tuesday and every Thursday, another school gets cut. It takes a lot of effort. It's not, you know, there's a lot of planning, a lot of, you know, we port the numbers over. We've got to do walkthroughs at the schools. We've got to plan it. These guys are nonstop every week. You know, Monday they go out, they look at the school, they walk it first, they decide what phones they're going to replace, they map it out, we have all the schematics. We have to port the numbers with AT&T, it has to be scheduled. So we have a meeting with AT&T once a week to do this. It's been going on for, 2 years now, and we're getting there. So hopefully all the elementary schools are going to be completed. We're scheduled to be completed by the end of this calendar year. So hopefully by December, all the elementaries are done. We are having a weekly meeting for Fulton, Holland. Fulton, Holland is planned to be upgraded on June 25th. That is our first Friday where nobody's in the building. So if you want to come to the building on that Friday, just be aware that you're not going to have a phone that day, at least for a little bit. It could be a couple of hours, but it will be available. We hope to complete this entire building. I think there's 1,100 lines we have to change in here. So we're planning how conference rooms are going to look. And, you know, we had these discussions, do conference rooms even need a new conference room? Everybody's gotten so used to doing Google Meets and this type of conferencing. It's a very small amount, and we kind of came to the conclusion that it is a good thing to have a landline in there and some kind of type of phone that people can just hit the button and still be able to dial out. And the IT service desk is coming this summer as well, so probably right around the same time as the Fulton Holland building. The Call centers are a little bit different. They're a little more complex. They have screen pops, they have soft phones, they have different types of things that were unavailable in the previous phone system. But boy, this project, I couldn't be more pleased with it. And it's saving us. You know, we don't have nearly as many emergencies. So I think that's all I got on that. Wireless access point replacement. I think this is the last thing I have for the 5 topics on the referendum dollars. We have completed all the high schools, middle schools, and 42 of the 110 elementary schools. So we are finishing up with this. This is on the old E-rate. This is on the previous 5-year. This spring, we actually went out. We went for bid. We've got it board certified, board completed, and that board awarded vendor is going to be putting in Wi-Fi 6 access points. That's the next standard. Any of the purchases that we're making, Natasha, I think even right now, the one that we're making this summer, the devices don't even support that yet. They're not even making the devices with that radio in it, the ones that we're trying to buy. Obviously, there are some out there, you know, some of the latest and greatest that are starting to push that technology, and it will be the next technology over the next 5 years. But, you know, and eventually, probably the next purchase we do, they'll have that radio available. It's giving us more density. Density is what we really need in these schools. It's going to be added, you know, we need density for all the IoT devices that are coming online, for all the Chromebooks that have come online. Everything that we currently have, even bringing in however many it was, 100,000 devices, we're still easily supporting that on the current standard that we have within the classrooms. I can't tell you how many letters and scared parents and scared companies I got said, are you going to be okay when we go back? And when we looked at it and we researched it, yeah, we should be okay. We will be okay based on the amount that we have. This next E-rate cycle, one of the things we're going to be doing is adding. So it's not just a full replacement. We're looking at things like football fields at the high school stadiums. We're looking at bus loops. We're looking at some of the corridors. You know, one of the biggest complaints we get right now is, hey, I walk outside and I have no Wi-Fi. And it's like, well, yeah, you know, it's really built. The original intent was for online instruction within the building. Expectations have changed quite a bit in the last 5 years. Everybody just wants Wi-Fi wherever they're at, no matter where they're at, even if they're standing out in the field, you know, even if it's still on school grounds. Gary, you know all about this. We remember going through this. It's changed a lot. So, you know, we're hoping to have that, since we do have the bid completed, we're hoping to have that kicked off. We're looking at starting the high schools probably at the end of this school year. And having everything ordered and starting at the high schools again. So the cycle begins again. This is a non-referendum topic I just wanted to touch on because I've had so many questions about internet bandwidth and how we dealt with it during COVID, you know, and I'm so happy that we weren't one of those school districts that wound up on national news saying, hey, just send everybody home because we can't do anything. We've put a lot of planning into internet bandwidth, and we always have. You know, since I've been here, we were planning on going from 24 gig to 32 gig, and we've always had a strategy of running about half our capacity to handle a massive influx, just in case there's a DDoS. You know, we spread it out. We can spread it out. We can weather storms, or fiber cuts, which I do want to say happen, and they've happened quite a bit in the last month. I feel like I've had 10 flat tires and 2 dead batteries, and it's just, you know, designing the architecture for this and getting everything put in place. The complexity of this, it's not like a simple home internet where your internet goes out and, you know, geez, you wait for it to come back on. There's so much complexity in this and so many layers. You know, we got the content filtering, we got the firewalls, we got all the security that we've implemented. And then it's dealing with different type of cuts. Okay, did we lose our Fulton Holland? Did we lose our South ITV? Did we lose our AT&T circuit? Did we lose our FLR circuit? Is it something with the county? So digging through these things, you know, sometimes can take a little bit of time, especially when everything shows up. It's easier on a fiber cut. Fiber cut, hey, we put in the ticket with AT&T. We know it's down. What is our failover? How we practice it? It's very difficult to practice on our live network. We try to do the best we can. Sometimes in an emergency situation, it takes us a little bit longer to bring things up. I think for the most part, we have weathered the last couple fiber cuts really well, except for in this building. Circuits were still going, but we still have some things in this building we're working on, and it's been a challenge for us, but we hope to have that completed. But anyway, sorry, back to this. Pre-COVID, we planned to move to 32. That was done in 2020. After we ordered like another 100,000 devices, we're like, maybe we should go to 40. So we did all the calculations. We should go to 40. We should be okay. But what happened was when so many kids went back in brick and mortar, they were still doing Google Meets in the classroom. And that we did not anticipate. We figured if they were sitting in a classroom looking at a teacher, they wouldn't be in the same Google Meet. They'd be looking at the teacher. And the draw was incredible. We never fully saturated, but we came close. And we really started piling up there. Man, if we get a fiber cut or have a DDoS, we're dead. Degradation is going to happen. It's going to be slow, if useful at all. And the last thing we want is kids to go home. So we immediately put in with AT&T. AT&T was doing COVID emergency measures. They allowed, put in circuits. They'll do it month to month on a month-to-month basis. We actually got 2 more. We put one in at South I. We put one in here at Fulton Holland. We added an additional 20. So really from the last year at this time, we went from 24 to 60 gig total, and we've been able to spread that over 6 circuits, 4 with AT&T and 2 with County. We're going to look at this again next year because I don't know if it's going to go down for next year. If everybody back in brick and mortar, we're probably not going to have the same draw. So we may be able to get rid of the emergency lines. Our internet contract is due next year. We're already in the planning for that. Of course, that's E-rate as well. So we got to look at how we do this. Is there a pointer? I don't know. Is there a pointer? Well, I'll just say this. The blue line is capacity, and you can see at the very beginning it goes from, we're at the 24, there's a bump to 32 and a bump to 40, and then that final bump is 60. So that's the true capacity. I know you can't read the legend down there. That's kind of hard to see the dates. But over time, this is since January of 2020. So you can see over time, the huge dip is the COVID months, and then you can see the summer going back to school. And then when we were back in brick and mortar, we started breaking the 30 gig range. We made sure that we had enough capacity on top of that for the fiber cuts, for the DDoS, things like that. And we've been averaging about 30 gig for this school year. And like I said, we'll reevaluate in the fall of next year. I kind of anticipate it's going to go down. That's my thought with everybody back in brick and mortar, and the nonstop streaming of Google Meets day after day by every single student. I just don't see that happening. When you multiply that by 200,000, that's a massive draw. It's okay with the randoms here and there, but we'll see how that goes. Any questions on any of this? I just wanted to kind of give a quick update on that, where we're at and what we've done over the last year.
Any questions? Well, thank you, David. I know infrastructure is foundational. Without that, nothing can get off the ground.
Everything.
Looking at redundancy and
Thank you.
capacity and doing it in advance, new technologies is very important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne.
So Natasha Bell Hayden, you have the next 2? So the District 1-to-1 initiative?
Good morning, TAC members. Welcome to the new members. I'm Natasha Bell Hayden. As Deepak mentioned, I'm now the IT Technical Operations Director over field support, service desk, device management, which I'm going to talk a little bit about here, and device support. Still some PMO. I was the IT PMO Director for almost 2 years, so my heart's still there, but I'm really, really appreciative for the opportunity to now be over the great Technical Operations Department. So thank you all. I'm going to talk a little bit about the one-to-one device project that Deepak kind of alluded to in the overview, and then kind of go into some of our future projects for Tech Ops. So as Deepak kind of mentioned, my predecessor, Chris Prasad, the board, Dr. Fenoy, Deepak, Mr. Burke, they really did a lot of the heavy lifting in the fall last year to get the board to approve $25 million in capital funding so that we could move from a 2-to-1 to a 1-to-1. It was a huge endeavor. I kind of just had to run the ball to the end of, to the field end, but a lot of the heavy lifting was done prior to me joining, and it's just been amazing. The success of this project really has to go to them, and the kudos to them for all the hard work with the negotiation and working with purchasing, and really just trying to find available devices. It was a global pandemic, and devices were really hard to find, and there was many vendors and very, small amounts of devices here and there, so they really pulled it together, and we were really successful with getting, as Deepak mentioned, almost 80,000 devices out. There's a breakdown of some donations that we also received from the Ed Foundation. CTE got some Windows devices, and those are to support the career and choice programs, so special like AutoCAD and heavy performing programs that obviously can't run on a Chromebook. So there were, almost 850 Windows laptops, plus another 14,000 Windows laptops for the CTE programs, and then another almost over 80,000 Chromebooks that were provided through the board approved funding and some donations. The distribution plan, really the approach for distributing these devices to all the schools was at an equitable strategy. We looked at the free and reduced lunches for each school, also how many Chromebooks were available. And kudos to the EdTech team. We looked at what devices were already on campus and looked at how many more we had to put into the school so that we could reach one-to-one. And then we distributed it at the highest risk ratio schools first, and just kind of went down the list. And it was, essentially every single school had to get some kind of deployment and delivery. The HP Chromebooks, as I mentioned, that was ordered back in August with the leadership team then, was put in August, but we didn't get those until a little bit late, and I'll go through some of the challenges there. But the orders were put in the summer, and we waited, and same thing with the CT laptops. Those were ordered late September last year. And then out of those CT devices, we had about 112 that went to CT teachers also to support the students in those programs. As some of the other presentations here, we also encounter some challenges and some lessons, I would say, through this distribution. So as I mentioned, the orders were done in the summer, but of course, due to the shortage of devices, we were, when I took over in October, it was daily and weekly check-ins with the vendors to get some status on when those devices were going to arrive and when we could plan to get them at the schools. So although we started in September, they didn't start trickling in until around December, and then that went all the way through to March this year. There were some penalties, which again, kudos to my predecessor, Chris Prasad, that we put into the contract. So we were able to get another 827 additional Chromebooks due to the penalties of the delay of the delivery of the devices. So that was actually to the district's benefit. And then here's just a kind of a breakdown of how long it took for them to get in. As I mentioned, they started trickling in. We had some that we kind of relocated in the summer months to the schools that needed them. December, we started doing the full delivery. CTE devices didn't come in until January, February, so we pushed those out as quickly as we can. A lot of moving pieces, but again, successful implementation as the end game. So looking into the future, so now we're at one-to-one, devices are out there, and I will say that we're now into device management. We know that we've got one-to-one devices out there, but a lot of them are getting broken. So now we're getting into the managing of those devices and fixing those devices, and the break-fix numbers are just astonishing. And for different reasons. Sometimes some, might be accidental, or there's different reasons. And of course, we have a 5-year warranty, including the battery on the Chromebooks, but those are mostly for failures, not for accidental spills. So there's, we're trying to navigate through that. Some of the future projects, which I think will kind of circumvent some of the break fix and the machine replacements, is now we're working on a refresh project. We've got about 57 Dell 3189s that are end of life. We just got approved to replace about 30,000 of those. So that's an active project right now that we're kind of pushing through to any schools that have some of the older devices. The good thing about that is they're end of life next summer. And Mr. Burke and Leanne, we were able to get the funding a little bit earlier so that we could, again, order them because we're concerned about shortages. So we were able to kind of do that a little bit earlier, giving the schools at least another year to use them, and then end of life them next summer. So that's a great thing. And then we'll move on to the other remaining devices that are also end of life next year with pending our budget. And so again, we're about 10,000 out of the 30,000 so far. When I took the stats, it's about 142 sites. So we're going to just actively continue to push those devices out to the schools. Another big project that we're undertaking is the teacher refresh. We're still kind of flushing this out. So we've got about 11,000 desktops in teacher classrooms. What we did is we went out to the teachers and sent out a survey to kind of get some understanding about, now that we're in a, as Dave mentioned, it's a different environment now, right? We're all used to Chromebooks and laptops. A lot of the teachers took home Chromebooks, honestly, when we went to distance learning last year, and they liked it. So we wanted to survey them. We worked with EdTech to kind of send a survey out and try to get some ideas about, well, do you want to replace the teacher desktop with a desktop like you've done in the past, or are you open to some laptops? And so that was kind of the big question. And out of that, we've got 60-40 pretty much on the laptops. A lot of the teachers noted the flexibility, being able to kind of match their students, even having the hybrid of a laptop, and it was good to have the mobility. So a lot of really good positive comments around the laptops. And then, of course, the desktop. A lot of the comments from the desktops was just, I think they were so used to having that solid machine in their classroom. So there was a lot of kind of misconceptions about what a laptop will do over a desktop. So we're going to work now on a marketing campaign to kind of debunk some of the myths about a laptop and make sure that the teachers are equipped with a laptop that's just as good or even better than their desktop with a docking station. So that's a project that we're just kind of in the acquisition phase. We're working with our purchasing department. The idea, again, based on our funding, is to start with elementary and middle schools who have like the older desktops, and then when funding becomes available, we'll work on the high school teachers and replace their desktops. So we're moving from a one classroom desktop to a one device per teacher. So it's a little bit more of in terms of a budget, it's a little bit of difference. You're going to spend a little bit more now because every single teacher would have to have a laptop with a docking station. And of course, just making sure that we have all the things that they need for integration with tools, minimal disruption in the classroom. That's going to be key when we start to deliver these laptops to the teachers. And the anticipated date to start that is in the new school year, hopefully right after like the 11-day count when things are a little bit more stable in the classroom, and we can start switching those out to desktops as well. And another big impact of this would be to get the desktops out, because as I mentioned, a lot of teachers are really close to their desktops. So we've got to end of life those desktops because those, of course, they're unsupported. So there's a whole campaign about that, changing that culture about, one device per teacher to one desktop in a classroom. And then we'll then have an influx of some of the available Chromebooks that some of the teachers are using, and we can reallocate those to students. Again, not sure what the fall will look like in terms of the classroom with everyone back in the campus. We may not have that big need for Chromebooks, so we'll just, again, have to just pivot with that. I think that's it for any questions on the project.
You want to say something?
I just want to make a comment. Oh, let me turn this on. Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing a theme here, and Deepak probably said it best at the onset, but I just want to take a minute also to thank the team. And, this past 16 months, it really just proved how dependent we are on our IT teams and our ET teams. Between rolling out the devices, contracting for student, free internet. Dr. Miller's team expedited the interactive smart panel project to get into every classroom within the fall. So that was done way ahead of schedule. And, we've been able to navigate this kind of switch to online learning, I think, as well as could be expected, and perhaps maybe better than some other districts that, unfortunately had some hiccups. So, we also passed a policy on take-home devices. We are learning a lot. Natasha's sharing not all good news, that these devices are breaking at a greater rate than we had expected. We did put out some of our older devices early on, so some of those were on their last legs to begin with. But I'm just incredibly proud of the team. The district, we shut down on, I think it was March 13th. We had an extended 2-week spring break to get this together, and I feel like the IT team really held up their end of the bargain. The academic side also, with Dr. Sheffield and Mr. Oswald, they had to scramble to create the curriculum and the content and all that. So it was a good team effort. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, and our parents and families had to struggle through with us, and we worked through those issues the best we could. So we're all now just looking forward to hopefully a more normal school year next year, and hopefully the team will get a little time off this summer. Probably not much, but at least a little bit to take a breath and get ready for the next year. So thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
So one quick question. I know you faced a huge cliff this year in buying a whole bunch of devices to account for the need. So that means down the road, you're going to face another cliff again because all these devices are going to age out at one time. Any plans on how you're going to face that cliff?
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's something we've encountered. You know, if you buy a bunch of school buses or buy anything, you got to plan for that that cliff. One saving grace is the federal dollars that have been passed. The ESSER funds, the American Rescue Plan, it's giving us a source. Technology is something that can be supported with those dollars. So Natasha and I and Deepak have been working with Ms. Leanne Evans, who oversees our capital budget, and we do a 10-year district capital budget now. So we're forecasting that out. We just are in the process of buying about 30,000 devices for the upcoming year, and I think we've got that layered in, 30,000 or greater for the next several years. And then Natasha, I don't know if you want to add more
I'm
detail.
just going to add the same thing. Leanne Evans already has that documented for the next 5 years, the 80,000. It's already documented for the capital plan so it's definitely on the horizon. Something we're always kind of thinking about is, like you said, they are going to fall off, so absolutely.
Yes. And the federal dollars are helping to take some pressure off of our traditional funding sources for the next 3 years, and then we're going to try to ramp up the local funding to sustain it.
We all realize it's a lot of demand right now. A lot of districts are ordering, and so we're ahead of the game. Like Leanne already gave us money, Mike already gave us money to order now for the next year. So we're already pre-ordering some of the stuff. So we'll be on the roll for that. So good point.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Okay, Mr. Miller, you have the next two parts, Assistant Superintendent Miller.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's good to see everyone back in the same room again. It's been a long 14, 15 months. I invited up at this podium two of the EdTech team members, Dr. David Atwell, our manager, and Mr. Kim Culp, our project manager, to help with presentations this morning. We have to up our game since Weidenhammer is now sitting on TAC, so the presentations are great. You want to go to the next slide, sir? So before we jump in, and David's going to take over from here, I just want to echo what Mr. Burke was saying. Our district has made quite a number of smart investments over the years leading up to the pandemic. No one knew, but the Trailblazer program, investments with one-to-one within our classrooms in the Trailblazer program, the upgrades in the network, just everything that had been done, as Mr. Burke said, really prepared us as best as any district could for the pandemic. We did have our stumbles, but you know what? We did so much better than so many other districts out there, and you'll see some recognition we received because of that. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Atwell now.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. So just leading off, we wanted to start off with the Trailblazer program, right? And one of the main goals of the Trailblazer program was to build the capacity of schools to move one-to-one one day. We knew that it was coming in the future, and we wanted to make sure that the teachers had the capacity to actually utilize the technology in meaningful ways to impact student learning. So we started implementing with our rockstar teachers, getting them one-to-one so that they start building that culture in the school. We've gotten about 20% of our teachers up and running with that before the pandemic, so we had a good solid base of support. So when the pandemic hit, right, we leveraged our Trailblazers to really be successful and support the rest of the teachers during the pandemic. That was already done, as has been stated. Another thing that we did is we actually received a Title IV grant funds to do a Train the Trainer program. So we got our Trailblazer trainers, and they actually trained up other teachers within the school, build a capacity to kind of continue to bridge that gap. What was the next thing once we have these Trailblazers who are up and running? Spread it down and make sure that we build capacity to the best of our ability. You can see the stats that we've done there. We had 179 lead Trailblazers from 107 of the schools that trained, and we had some good infiltration. You know, we were always hoping, it was voluntary, so we were hoping that more people would do it. We actually provided stipends for the lead Trailblazers to do this, but overall it was a help. Another strategy that we had during the pandemic, very quickly we had to change the direction that we were going with training. Obviously, we could no longer do that in person, and digital training became the way that we had to go, obviously. So we very quickly started a training website that housed all of the trainings that we were doing. We got a YouTube channel specifically for the EdTech team, which we have over 4,000 subscribers for. We keep joking around that if we could only monetize, we could fund some really good stuff. You're not allowed to do that. Communicating out on Twitter and all those things, but we started doing PD and live streams and doing virtual office hours, so anyone could call in and just an open Google Meet. Anyone, are you having trouble connecting with your kids with the technology? Do you have a nuance of pedagogy with the technology you want to discuss, and have these on an ongoing basis for teachers to call in? It was really successful. But the center in the bottom, you can see the live streams. We've done a ton of live streams, 121 sessions. We did virtual learning experiences, which are basically like virtual field trips at the end of the year. We did Holocaust streams, different conferences that we held, regional hall meetings, and we even had a couple board member meetings. And we're actually in the process of training up other teams to utilize the YouTube and StreamYard so they can facilitate a lot of their own things. We've kind of become the consulting experts on that, and are now collaborating with other departments to be able to do that within their own capacity.
David, before you jump on, I just want to point out at the top center under the YouTube channel, that metric, 947,000 views on our YouTube channel, that is from March when the pandemic closed up. Just put that in perspective. We have, 13,000 teachers, Mr. Burke?
Right.
So we have viewership across the country, across the world on these webinars. So we've definitely helped our teachers, but we've also, a lot of other people were able to leverage what we've done. And it's just, I think, speaks to the quality of the work by the EdTech team. Just that many views on our YouTube channel is not insignificant. Just want to point that out.
Absolutely, and if you've had the opportunity to see any of these, the level of quality that they're able to produce in a live format is actually quite great. Here's a couple examples of some of the streams that we've done, right? We had an EdTech Institute. You can see the number of views directly underneath. And we did an E-Day with Google Tools, did Tech Talks where we talked about the 4 Cs. Lots of different opportunities, and we have these on an ongoing basis. We're continuing to put them out every week. So hope you guys are excited. We are going back to the Tech Conference 2021. Very appropriate title that the team came up with this year is Fast Forward, a Decade of Change in a Year. And I think everybody's experienced that. Mark your calendars. It's October 15th. And it's going to be a great time of learning together.
Is it going to be a virtual or is it going to be on site?
I don't know if anybody can say that with 100% certainty at this point, but we will be, if we're able to do it live and safe and appropriate, that'll be the best format. But if we're doing it virtual, right now we are planning for it to be virtual, and we have this whole virtual event hall and all of this going on. So it should be successful either way, but the current plan is for it to be virtual.
Thank you.
Yeah, because we figured either way, whether we're allowed to go back or not, we can always do it virtual, so we're planning in that direction, unless a vision change happens. That'll be the way. All right, and esports. Everybody's excited about esports. We've been getting internally really amped about it. And I believe John Shoemaker actually came here last time and spoke with you guys way back last year and gave you an update. Unfortunately, there has been a little delay in esports due to COVID, so we're actually picking that back up right now. I actually delivered a school worth of gaming computers to a school, to Jupiter High yesterday. So we're getting them the devices out, and we're going to be up and running next year is what the goal is. We have an augmented timeline. You can see after the pandemic delay, now we're in spring 2021. We're delivering out the devices, creating the manual for the teams, and getting the actual work in the schools up and running so that the students can, the goal is to have it up and running at the beginning of next year. It's an ambitious goal, and we're going to work really hard to see it come. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Kim Culp.
All right. So I'm going to review, just start by overviewing the 4 areas that are the 4 items that make up the classroom audiovisual technology package, the instructional package. And as a few have alluded to, we were really fortunate in ed tech to have had the referendum sales tax passed a few years earlier and had a solid plan the district supported to update our technology. So we were ready. We didn't miss it from the AV side and instructional tools that the teacher would use. For the most part, we had what we needed. We did end up ordering some cables, miscellaneous extended cables. Teachers could reposition some things, but the core stuff that the rest of the world couldn't get, Palm Beach County was in great shape, fortunately, because of the timing of the referendum and our purchases. So the four core things that I'm going to review where we are and what we've completed and what our plans are for the future are the audio enhancement, the sound field enhancement in the classroom, the projector system in the classroom, which is a carryover that we still maintain as a second screen, and then the core, our crown kind of project is our smartboard interactive presentation on a mobile stand, and then additionally the document camera we're still maintaining. So this is just highlighting those 4 areas of our classroom envelope, and you see completed. So completed in the smart panel column, 100% accurate in that we have rolled those out, and we're going to talk in a little more detail about that. That project's completed. That'll be the next slide. LCD projectors, dot cams, and audio enhancement. We haven't had the luxury of changing out every single model all at the same time. It's more cost effective because just the way they came into the district to replace models as they go obsolete, right? We always strive for fleet optimization and keeping them standard, and we'll talk more about that. But those are complete in that we have updated the oldest technology with referendum dollars for all 3 of those, but they're in various stages of kind of, we call it a rolling refresh. So I'll talk to that here in a minute. So the first topic there, the smart interactive flat panel deployment, we have just under, right at 11,000 IFPs that were deployed over a 3-year timeline. So we have all elementary, middle, and high school classrooms. The great thing about that, because we had the purchase in place and the rollout was by the time COVID started, 75% complete, we were able to actually escalate that during COVID, where most projects, people that weren't underway were delayed. We were actually able to push the timeline up and have all the high school panels, the last grouping, delivered a month early. And so we finished that project a little ahead of schedule because that's been a critical part of the teachers running a Google Meet in the classroom with the webcam. One other thing we were able to do with that project that was really great because of the partnership with Smart, part of that package had a really high quality webcam as the Smart panel. Since we already had all the orders in place, we were able to escalate and get those webcams to teachers for the start of school in August, even though the Smart panels weren't able to be delivered until September, October, so the teachers could position those and still complete their classes, complete their Google Meets from their classrooms. So that project has been, we've given you updates throughout the project for that, and it's great to have that completed. The teachers are loving that system. As ed tech, not only do we roll out hardware, but we also train teachers to use the hardware. With the package, the Smart package, it actually came with training and support from Smart, so we have a total of 8 folks from Smart servicing our teachers, training our teachers, supporting our teachers. Our ed tech team will pick that up as those go down over the next 2 years, but it was a multi-year support. They will have been in our district a total of probably 5 years by the time they end up exiting. This graph is showing that we had 100% of our teachers trained at about the time we were finishing our rollout there in November of 2020. And it talks about the number of hours that we still have maintaining. Oh, great point there. I want to point out, everyone loves leading the world, and we have more smart digital educators than any district in the world. So we're really proud of that. Similar with our Google certified educators as well. So it helps that we're a large district, but it's still quite an accomplishment.
Kim, before you go on, if I could just add with the smart panels, if anyone follows the district on Twitter or watches some of the videos, even some of the Dwyer videos, I noticed everywhere you look, you're going to see a smart panel now. It's just become the way we do things around here, and it's just part of our culture now. It's just amazing to see the hard work from the ed tech team just become so highlighted and just a big part of it. So just wanted to point that out and recognize the team for that.
Thank you. A minor part of our refreshes this year is the 915W. It's a model, it's gone obsolete and out of warranty, so those are being refreshed, a very small portion. You consider we have 11 to 12,000 classrooms we maintain, but they're being updated, they're important, and the models that go in have a much longer life in terms of bulb life, and they're much brighter and better for instruction. This one really love, Media Center and Cafetorium. We in our cafeterias uses auditorium in elementary middle. It's called the cafetorium in our district. So updating our large venue projectors, those are really important because those are areas that have traditionally gotten left behind. It's an area that the public uses, and it's an area that our schools that don't have the same access to fundraising often get overlooked. So this is one of those where we're able to optimize the fleet and replace every media center and cafetorium projector in the district with the same model. A couple of things we're able to do, many of those are high. They require tall ladders or sometimes even a lift. So it made sense to invest in those that are laser so that the bulbs aren't burning out. And the great thing about that too is they're much brighter, so similar brightness to what you're seeing here in the boardroom. The picture there doesn't quite do it justice because they're not backlit, so it doesn't capture well on camera, but trust me, they're bright just like what you're seeing here, and it's a great tool that we have that everyone can enjoy in our schools, and we're all the same. Document camera refresh, another critical portion. We know we've used document cameras for a long time, and you might think teachers are doing everything based on the computer, but document cameras are still very much used. When we saw that during the pandemic, teachers at home were being creative when they had to go home very quickly and creating their own document cameras with phones and Chef Boyardee cans. I mean, it was crazy, some of the things that people were doing. The one model that we have, the U70, were very helpful for teachers at home, whereas the other model that we're replacing this year, the Avra F50, requires a pass-through with VGA and or HDMI, and it gets complex with cabling and source switching. So and those are obsolete now. We're actually replacing those, looking to do that next year. And so we'll be standard on the U70 or the U70 Plus with straight USB connection, everything running through the teacher computer. And those also have a benefit if the teacher or student wants to use it with a Chromebook and or the smart panel is a single USB cable to connect. Just a lot less cables and cords, more flexibility, and just a lot better teaching tool. And benefit, because it's straight USB, a simpler device actually costs half the money. So they're $200 for us to replace. Audio enhancement, rolling refresh. This is the last portion of the update there in audio. So we do have kind of 3 different batches to replace and refresh the entire fleet in the district. The big idea there is the old technology. I mean, they're about 15 years old, the original ones in the district now, and with various stages that came in 5 to 10 years after that are infrared. And infrared it was great, cutting edge at the time, but XD, the new technology, uses FM, and the clarity is better, and the transmission is better, and that there's not breakups. Another benefit is we're actually able to put these devices onto the network and do some great things, which I'll explain in our new construction slides coming up. And the timeline for that, we updated about 4,000 systems in FY17. So coming up here over the next 3 years, we'll be replacing about 5,000 systems that are the Ultimate 3, again, as they're aging out, over 10 years old. And then the Ultimate 3 will be over 10 years old in FY25. So the same bullet that was at the bottom is here at the bottom too, which I'll explain. So transitioning to what we're doing in some new construction, I don't know how many of you have opened a new facility, new site, new building, new wing in your jobs in technology. When you build something new, it's different than when you retrofit, right? You get to start from the ground up. So in our new construction, we're able to leverage a new system from Audio Enhancement to do safe alerting and also intercom paging and bells. Traditionally, we have a separate intercom paging and bell system, totally separate network in the school with separate cabling and wiring. Now that we have the amplifier in the classroom on the network, we can actually utilize that and not have multiple sets of speakers in the classroom with its own separate network running all the way back to a head end. The example we built for the holding school, we were able to save $100,000 putting in this system. It's not just about cost savings, though. You can now leverage those systems to do alerting. This is something that's coming. We've seen it, and then it was pulled back, and there's various ways to do this with either hardware or software. In our new construction, we have the ability to do this with hardware remote. So the teacher microphone, which is shown there in number 1, they actually can alert if there's an emergency. They get a visual indicator on the receiver in their classroom. That's number 2. They can see the lights go red. The school main office gets a touch map interface where that alert's coming from. if the teacher would happen to move, it actually can track what receiver is picking it up, and you can get a location of that if an event is moving. We can alert the police dispatch, have that up to the district. As the system grows, there's that option. It's not in use at this point. There's the ability to kick off text alerts. That is there for the school staff right now, and any district staff we have set to get those. And then the teacher, when the main office acknowledges that help is on the way, the teacher gets another notification where the 2 lights on the outside turn green. So they know that someone has acknowledged this, right? And that helps them handle a situation. You know, we naturally think of this being something in the classroom that is going to be a worst case scenario, but the more common situation would be a student out of control. It might even be a fight in the classroom in a high school. Those happen. So some of the benefits here is that connected systems decrease response times, increasing student safety and security. And this is the way the world is moving. So the one bullet on this it talks about the new systems we're putting in have the ability to leverage this system should the district want to go there. So that is a nice option that we have that ability to go there should the time and need arise. One other part on this is in our new construction, safety is important, but the day-to-day functionality they get in new construction is with the intercom paging and bells ability with this. Because now the principal can zone, they can click on a map, call into 2, 3, 4 rooms, they have AC down in one room, they can call into that group. They can set up very simply bell schedules for testing and not ring and disrupt the whole school. If you're on split lunches, you don't have to ring into the whole school because every room is individually addressable on a touch interface map, and the old systems just don't do that. So we get huge benefits with moving everything digital. Did you want to add something with that, Dr. Moore?
Yes, speaking as a former principal, the old intercom systems, you know, you have to flip a switch and talk in and say, you know, Mrs. Miller, are you there? And, you know, to change a bell would take a work order and someone coming out to the school. That could take, you know, a few days. But another improvement is that if you have something going on or special event, it's very easy to change the alerting and the bell system and everything. Our superintendent did decide that this is going to be our standard in new construction schools moving forward, which is very nice and powerful. So the principals are very happy to have this.
Yeah, so our two holding schools and one new construction school opening, and the 2 new construction schools opening up. They're moving from the holding schools. So Verde, Addison, Washington, if you get a chance to speak to those principals, you know, every time, the feedback we hear from them is just,
They love it.
yeah, they love it. Yeah, it just makes their schools safer and just so much more efficient. So here is an example of Verde K-8. This is the actual new construction school, not the holding school. And I drew the boxes around the different images because it kind of, without the boxes, it just really blends in, which is what you want. You don't want the technology being front and center and dominating everything you're doing. So the color differentiation there, you see in the blue, those are the different audio enhancement components. So if we start on the right, you see the smart panel in the right part of the classroom. There's a microphone holder on there for the wireless mic for the teacher. So now that smart panel, if the teacher's using it at the front of the room for instruction, it wirelessly transmits. The beauty of that is the teacher simply has a single power cord on that smart panel, and then audio, video, everything works directly from that panel. So they can move it around just a single power cord. The other parts of the audio enhancement, you see 2 ceiling speakers highlighted. There's 2 in the far side. There was actually a total of 4. And then moving to the left, you see the receiver on the wall right there by the teacher station, so the teacher can see what's going on with their receiver. There's a call button there because in new construction we integrate the call button with that system. So that covers the audio enhancement. And if we work back left to right in red, so kind of hard to see with a contrast, but there's a computer right there on the teacher desk, very sleek and modern, that we don't put the CPU. We actually have the CPU housed in the media cabinet that's just to the right of that on that teacher station. There's a venting system in there, lockable, so the teachers can charge their microphones in there, and also we house the audio enhancement amp. Another little tweak we've made in new construction, because again, new, is we run a wireless keyboard and mouse, so the teacher now is just totally flexible. It's just a great teaching environment for them when we can set everything up brand new. One difference here, new construction versus retrofit. New construction, we don't put the projector in, right? So, but we do still have dual display. Instead, we use a smart panel at the front of the classroom instead of the projector mounted in the ceiling. And of course, they have the mobile, height-adjustable smart panel that the teacher can put anywhere in the classroom. One other component, wireless access point there is in the center. So I think that covers all the components in our new construction. The last item I have is just to point out As new technology comes on, and part of our initiative in training teachers remotely, we put together a support website with those 4 core items that covers technical and instructional strategies for school techs and teachers on the 4 items I've been talking about today: audio enhancement, dot cams, projectors, and the interactive flat panels. And pass it on to
Thank you, Mr. Colt. This is the next slide, talks about our digital curriculum and rostering. Just to make sure everyone's aware, we have a platform called Blender. That's where we put all of our instructional resources and materials, our scope and sequence for our teachers, that they all have access to, and it's been around for a while. We also handle our rostering a few ways. EdTech handles the rostering of 65+ programs, but we use Clever, we use OneRoster, SAML, LTI. We also work with the IT team, with Dawn's team, on many other rostering of applications. But during the pandemic, having Blender, the teachers already used to it, and having the resources there, it was very easy to get the new instructional resources out to the teachers in the mode that's they're most used to, which they could really use. Oh, thanks. Another project I want to talk about is our digital inclusion project. When the district closed down back in last March, we did a survey of all of our students and our parents, and we saw about 15,000 that had replied, said they didn't have internet or didn't have very good internet. And we knew that was going to be a big issue trying to provide remote learning. We were going to be leaving students behind. This is not new to EdTech and IT. We have a name for it called Digital Divide. It's been around for a long time. We've done some projects together in the past on this, which we're able to leverage here, and I'll talk about that. When we went out, the school district partnered with the county and the Ed Foundation to provide what we're calling the digital inclusion process. But first, we had to implement a short-term strategy right away. And thanks to the school board, we did fund T-Mobile hotspots, approximately 5,000 hotspots. And then we also purchased Comcast internet sponsorships. Comcast for years has offered internet essentials you might have heard about. It's $9.95 a month for families. We purchased a number of subscriptions to give to families if they needed it. Currently, out of the 5,000 hotspots, we have 3,000 hotspots that are being used in drawing data. We didn't really know what the need was going to be, right, until we tried to give them out. And then we, unfortunately, the uptake on Comcast wasn't that strong. We only have, as of last week, 625 families with an active internet sponsorship through them that we're paying for. Moving forward, we're going to continue to fund the T-Mobile hotspots, the 5,000, and we're just going to leave the Comcast in place at the 625 and not increase that. So those are our short-term strategies, but we had an opportunity here with this pandemic to provide strong internet to our families, to our students for free. As I mentioned before, we worked together. Okay. I'll take the question at the end. Thanks, Marlene. Where was I? Back in 2005, 2008, the county partnered with the school district and Palm Beach State College and others to do a pilot project in the Pleasant City area as well as Delray Beach. Basically, they put up a Wi-Fi network in those two areas. It went well. EdTech was involved by providing laptops with a wireless card built into it and training to families so those families could connect and the kids could do their homework. We leveraged that same exact project just with updated equipment. The county received about $16 million from their CARES funds that they're working right now across our district and putting up the infrastructure, which entails putting up big route radios on county and school district buildings, and then they're putting up around the neighborhoods where students need this, smaller Wi-Fi radios. They're about the size of a shoebox on these big ugly poles. No, they're not ugly. They're just big poles all around the neighborhoods. And those small mesh radios, we call them, put out the Wi-Fi signal. Right now, we've identified about 25,000 students that would be covered by this Wi-Fi mesh. We identified them based on the survey, as well as free and areas of great concentration of free and reduced lunch. The county has been working for months and months in many areas to put these Wi-Fi mesh areas up. We just got our first pilot area going successfully in Lake Worth, just south of Barton Elementary. And we only, right now, we only have like about 3 or 4 students connected. So expensive Wi-Fi for those 4 students, right? $16 million. But that's just the pilot area. And we're going to have other areas coming online over the next few months. Basically, I talked through the slide. You can see the nice poles with a great representation of the Wi-Fi mesh radios, that little white box on the top. They actually come installed with a solar panel and then a battery backup box. So those, they don't need to run any wires from the poles. They're all self-sustaining. And I believe I have the last slide. Just talking about our highest, some of the accolades the school district has received from this work before the pandemic and during the pandemic. We already had over 2,400 trailblazers in the district before the pandemic. We have right now over 2,600 Google certified educators in our district, which is the highest number of Google certified educators in any district in the world. We're proud to say that. And we definitely leveraged them during the pandemic. All that vast capacity was already built. We have the greatest number of smart digital educators in the world. We just found out about Adobe Creative Educator, so we're over, I think, almost 170 now, which is also the highest number in the world because they just started their certification, but I'll take it. And then we've earned some awards. We're working together as a district. We earned the EdTech Awards Trendsetter Award in 2020 for the Trailblazer program. We were also named a Google Reference District, which is an invite-only application process based on our work, and we were also featured in a Google case study. So there was a lot of other things EdTech did, but these are the big major pieces. We worked very well together with IT the whole way through, as well as the other academic departments. And I will open it up to questions. I know I had a question from James Campbell. I could try to read it. If you ever want to try retrofitting an existing school, Seminole Ridge would love to have it as a pilot. Thank you, James. We're going to note that down. That was an eye test to try to read that. So any other questions from anyone?
Thank you, and thank you both for joining us for the presentation. Did you also have the last one on the electronic device take-home policy?
We do.
Please.
So thanks to the great work of IT, we had a new problem, right? So we went one-to-one, and when you go one-to-one as a district, you kind of need a policy to help manage and govern how students, teachers, and schools will handle those devices. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. David Atwell to bore you with all the details. I'm just kidding. To give you more details about that policy that just got board approved last month. So we're super excited about that.
Just want to thank everybody who helped work on this policy. It feels like everybody had their hands in it at some point. It was truly a collaborative effort. So as Dr. Miller was saying, this was a response to the COVID outbreak when we now went one-to-one very quickly, and now we needed some type of policy to govern the way that we set expectations for students with these devices. How are they going to be treated? Am I going to be held accountable for them? What is it going to look like? So we built this collaboratively with many different departments on the academic side and also IT as well. So there's 3 main sections of policy 8.124, and got to give a shout out to legal before we even start either. There was a labor of love between them and us, I'll tell you that. So the first is the expectations for students and parents/guardians. So in there we included the acceptable use policy, a definition of ownership of the device, right? We own the device, we're letting you use the device. Notification of the electronic device procedures to parents, make sure they're aware of what's going on with it. And then the typical policy statement requiring you to do what the policy says. Then we provided 2 documents with additional support and guidelines, student guidelines, and then frequently asked questions for parents. All of the additional documentation that goes along with the policy is actually housed on the Ed Tech department website of the school district website, and you can see it there. There's a section for 8.124 additional documentation. Then the 2 other sections in it, in the policy, are accountability. So a part of the process was to start working with Resource Manager. It's through Destiny, a product that we typically use with checking out books in the library, and then periodic device checks, setting up a cadence of expectation for schools to do device checks. And then finally, the last section is storage of inventory, right? What does it look like? What are the expectations around collecting devices? End of year obligations. What do you do if they're lost, destroyed, or damaged, right? Is it under warranty? Then you do this. If it's not under warranty, what's the depreciated value of that? And we've collaborated with IT to create a document that will be changing as these depreciation numbers change and the device types change. And then notification of parents of obligations and tracking the obligation status. A good way of thinking about this is we heavily utilize, I think this is on the next slide, yeah. This is the procedure that we used while we went about creating this policy. It was heavily influenced by the instructional materials accountability policy that we already have in hand, because schools are already used to tracking textbooks. They're already used to tracking obligations. The mechanisms are all there. We just piggybacked on it and changed a little bit of nuance. It was different enough that it required a new policy, but not so different that we weren't able to borrow heavily from the previous policy. And you can see that we worked with everyone, including principals, the Division of Wellness, Labor Relations, and as I said, IT, Teaching and Learning, and the legal department, and the board office, obviously, for facilitating that through. It was approved, was it 2 weeks ago Wednesday, Dr. Miller? I believe it was something like that, and it's on the verge of being posted to the official policy section in the under board docs. So very exciting. It's going to be added to the student handbook in its full text for the upcoming year, so that students definitely see it and parents definitely see it. Working with them to get that in there shortly. Any questions around the take-home policy? And even though it says take-home policy, it really is, it encompasses devices at the school as well. It's anytime you check out a device to a student. So if you check out a device to the student, but they keep it at the school, it's still checked out to them. It would follow a same procedure.
Thank you, Dr. Atwell. Deepak?
I just have a quick update on the TAC members, basically. We had a resignation last year from Roger Pelzer, as Chuck Shaw, tenure ended basically in November. So Roger, we'll miss Roger. I believe Ms. Ayala, who's the new board member, she has already submitted a person, and I think board is going to announce it or clear it basically in the next meeting, basically, and so we'll have a new member. I don't, so unless the board clears, I don't want to name the member yet. Yesterday we received, and I believe Ms. Brill and myself and Mr. Piper got a message from Larry Paget. And Larry has resigned also. So he wants to enjoy retirement. And I initially felt that health-wise he's okay, so he's okay. And we checked that Marlene, but he said he wants to vacate and he wants to do something else, or retire, or travel, whatever he wants to do. So I believe Ms. Brill has a person. And right now we're getting the resume and everything, and so we'll share with that all the TAC members. And I believe next meeting, which Mr. Piper will announce, hopefully we'll have both members attending that meeting. So that's all I have.
Thank you. So, yes, so the next meeting is September 1st, be a Wednesday. So we look forward to that. We'll have a nice agenda by then, and the updates that Deepak mentioned when they come through, we'll forward through email, so we're all up to date. All right, so with that, any other comments? Or motions to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.